What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Alright, so we are going to continue our coverage over X-Men Inferno, except now it is time for us to cover some tie-ins. Today's video, we're going to cover the Avengers tie-ins. Now, I should say, when it comes to X-Men Inferno, you have a lot going on already. You have, the X-Men fighting against the Marauders. You got Madeline Pryor trying to get her son back. You got demons trying to take over New York City and possibly the rest of the world. You have a lot happening in this one event, but this event was also a way to give us a brand new Avengers team, because around this time the Avengers were disbanded, but now it's time for the world to get their Earth's mightiest heroes back together again to help protect the Earth, and this event brings in a new kind of team. Now, I should say that when it comes to the tie-ins for the Avengers, the way the Avengers come back together is all because of Jarvis. Now remember, Jarvis was the butler to Iron Man and also to the Avengers, but with the Avengers being disbanded, well, he was technically out of a job, so he moved back in with his mother, and they were living off his pension that he got from working with the Avengers. Now, while at home, his mom is trying to watch a boxing match, but unfortunately, the TV goes out. Now, here's the thing, because as we saw in the earlier chapters of Inferno, different kinds of objects are now coming to life, are being possessed by demonic energy or just straight up demons. And so currently, we have no idea the TV not working is because it's being possessed, or all electronics are going crazy because of the whole Inferno event. But either way, you have Jarvis tell his mother, hey, you know what, Mom? Let me go out there, find a repairman, and see if he is able to fix the TV before the next boxing match. But unfortunately, you have the guy tell him that all his guys are out there right now trying to fix so many different TVs because a lot of TVs are having similar issues as well. Now, you do have Jarvis try to enjoy his day while being outside. So he tells himself, why don't I go ahead and go over to the art museum? Now, this is going to kick off a series of events where you have Jarvis just walking around the city, but being attacked or trying to help other people who are currently being attacked by different objects coming to life. So, for example, at the very beginning of his day, the subway train comes to life. And matter of fact, it tries to kill off a young woman who become his girlfriend in Marvel Comics for a very short period of time. Her name is Glory Garson. She's not really important for the storyline. It's just something I want to mention. But as he continues on, he hears that the museum is completely locked down. Nobody is able to get in and nobody's able to get out. Matter of fact, he also runs into Peter Parker, where you have Peter Parker and him kind of help protect a young woman and her daughter from falling bricks, because even buildings are somewhat being possessed by demonic energy. A lot of different things are happening all at once. But after a while, you have Jarvis say, okay, you know what? Enough is enough. I have to go ahead and call in the Avengers, even though I know they're no longer around. But I do have the number for at least one of the old Avengers. Now, the person you have Jarvis call up is Steve Rogers, better known as Captain America, except around his time in Marvel Comics, he was called the Captain, because him and the American government had a disagreement. Either way, when it comes to the Captain, when he does get back home from his latest adventure, he does hear Jarvis' message, except right before he's able to do anything about that, one of the computers in his house comes to life and tries to attack him. And so now Steve Rogers realized that what Jarvis is talking about on the message is actually true. You do have different things coming to life and attacking people all over the city. But when we jump back over to Jarvis, we see Jarvis going out of the way again to save Glory, because once again, Glory got in trouble because she wanted to find Jarvis to actually ask him out, to possibly date him. But she got herself in trouble again. Either way, once you have Jarvis being able to pull her out of the latest trap she got in, which was two cars pushed against one another and she was in the middle, you then have the two characters being able to, talk about the idea of going out on a date, except out of nowhere, you then have this huge robot appear. Now, this huge robot is trying to kill off Jarvis and everyone else around him. Now, because Jarvis believes that he was around the Avengers for a short period of time, maybe he'll be able to at least hold off the robot long enough to get everyone out of there, or to possibly find a way to actually take it down. Let me tell you right now, this robot does not play around at all, to the point where you actually have the robot being able to grab Jarvis and begin to squeeze him very tightly. And so we're left to believe in the possibility that Jarvis is about to die in the arms of this robot. Except that is when you have Steve Rogers appear. Now, when Steve Rogers does appear, he is able to go toe to toe with the robot. Matter of fact, he's able to take down the robot. And we do learn that it was actually a car that has somehow transformed into a robot. Either way, once you do have Steve Rogers being able to take down the robot and turn back into a regular car, he says, you know what, it's time for me to go ahead and figure out what in the world is going on here in New York City. Now, Jarvis does hint at the idea that possibly Steve should work with other heroes in the city, because this kind of situation is just too big for him to handle on his own. Now, Steve does agree, but I should tell you, the next chapter, our heroes are not really going to deal with the whole demons in New York City thing. Instead, you're going to have our heroes deal with a set of characters who were villains for X Factor in the earlier parts of our coverage. Now, as we jump into the second chapter, the first half is really more of Steve Rogers just still being the captain, going around trying to take out demons where he can. Now, he does run into the New Mutants. Now, when it comes to the New Mutants, really just Magic, she's kind of responsible for the reason why we have the Inferno event. It's not completely her fault, but she is one of the many reasons. But we also get reminded that Steve Rogers has no idea who these characters are. Like, yes, he fought alongside with the X-Men. Yes, he may have heard about X Factor. But the New Mutants, it seems that not a lot of characters out there in the world of Marvel Comics around this time actually know who the New Mutants are. But he does realize that they are a group of heroes who are trying their best to fight against the demons. So after a while, you do have Steve Rogers fight alongside with them, but once you have the group being able to take down a group of demons, he moves on with his day to try to figure out what is exactly happening here in New York City. Now, like I said earlier, when it comes to the story arc, it's going to be used as a way to introduce a new team of Avengers. We only got one person so far. We need some more characters. So we're now going to jump over to the home of the Eternals, where we pick up with Gilgamesh. Now, Gilgamesh is also better known as the Forgotten One when it comes to the Eternals. Now, when it comes to the Eternals, they basically call themselves the protectors of the earth. And so they get word that something big is happening in New York, and they must send somebody down there to figure out what exactly is going on. And so Gilgamesh is the chosen one to head down to New York and see if he is able to kind of figure out the problem in New York. But then we jump over to Reed and Susan Richards. Now, around this time in Marvel Comics, these two characters had left the Fantastic Four because they wanted a normal life for themselves, but also for their son, Franklin. And so when we jump over to them, we see them all in bed right now, just trying to sleep for the night. But they have no idea they have an intruder, and that will be Orphan Maker and also the nanny. Now, we have talked about these characters in earlier parts of our coverage over X Factor. Now, when it comes to the nanny and Orphan Maker, they go around the world to find children who are mutants and take them away from their parents, because the nanny believes that she can do a better job raising those kids than their own parents can. And so when it comes to Franklin, around his time in Marvel Comics, he was classified as a mutant. And so for Orphan Maker, his goal is to go inside, get Franklin, kill off his parents, and then bring Franklin over to the nanny. The problem is when it comes to Susan, she has one of her force fields up, protecting her and Richards. And so when you have Orphan Maker try to shoot Reed, the bullet bounces off and he freaks out. He grabs Franklin and gets the heck out of there. And he says he is going to lie to the nanny about him killing off Reed and Susan. But here's the problem for Orphan Maker, because right after he leaves with Franklin, well, Steve Rogers appears. And Steve Rogers wakes up Reed and Sue hoping to get their help with the whole demon problem. But the problem is now is that their son is missing. They're freaking out. Now, of course, Franklin is being tracked by his father in some kind of way. And so Reed was able to figure out that, hey, somebody is currently leaving in some kind of aircraft with my son. We gotta follow them now. And you have Steve like, well, I guess I'll help out because it is your son and I'm a friend of y'all. So let's go save Franklin. And that leads into the lie for Orphan Maker falling apart, because as soon as you have the nanny go into the room to check in on Franklin, she begins to find out that Franklin is the son of Reed Richards. She asks Franklin like, hey, who's your father? And he says, Reed. Reed who? Reed Richards. And the nanny freaks out because she had no idea that she sent the Orphan Maker into the home of Reed and Susan. And so she asked Orphan Maker like, please tell me that you made this child an orphan. Please tell me you killed off his parents. And you have the Orphan Maker try to lie, but the nanny knows that he is lying. And so she begins to freak out. But then out of nowhere, their aircraft is forced to land because of Reed and the rest of his crew. And that leads into a battle. Now, when it comes to the battle between our heroes and also Orphan Maker, it's really a good battle here because for me personally, it kind of shows the Orphan Maker is not just a pushover. He can actually go toe to toe with our heroes up to a certain point. Once you have our heroes work together as a team, but also throw all their different kinds of abilities at him at once, it makes it really hard for him to win the battle. Now, the nanny wants to make sure that she is able to win this battle. And so out of nowhere, you have somebody else in a different armor suit. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they're like, hey, you know what? Who cares? We'll take him down and also Orphan Maker to get Franklin back. But here's the problem, because as the battle goes on, you didn't have our heroes realize that the person inside the red armor suit is Franklin Richards, because the nanny realized how powerful Franklin was, and she felt like she could use his powers as a way to get rid of the heroes, but also for later schemes down the road. And so now our heroes have to fight against their own son. But then we jump over to Kang the Conqueror. Yes, we're going to add another character in this crazy story. Now, when it comes to Kang the Conqueror, he is basically stuck in a time bubble. Now, I'm not going to explain what is a time bubble because that's a whole video itself right there. But when it comes to Kang the Conqueror, he's able to watch over New York and watching New York be attacked by the forces of Limbo. Now, here's the thing, because when it comes to the demons of Limbo, they are actually ruining the time strings across time. And there's one time string he needs to survive so that he can survive. But the only problem is, though, as the demons continue to come into Earth's reality, more and more different time strings are being ruined. And most likely his is going to be on the chopping block very soon. And so he realized that the only way he's actually able to save himself is to help out the Avengers. But like we saw earlier, there are no Avengers at the moment. And so he has no choice but to find different characters and bring them together to hopefully form a new Avengers team that could then possibly bring him back to life in the far future. Now, we do jump over to Nazareth, and you have Nazareth watching over the battle between our heroes and Franklin Richards, who is currently inside an armor suit. Now, when it comes to Nazareth, he kind of realized that he can use Franklin for his own personal gain here, because he now knows when it comes to Madeline Pryor, Madeline could most likely be a problem down the road. And with that happening, he needs something else on his side to kind of keep her in her place. And Franklin Richards can be that weapon. And so now his next goal is to get his hands on Franklin. But getting back over to our heroes are in luck that they got some extra help to kind of take down Franklin. And that would be the Forgotten One, Gilgamesh. Now when he arrives, our heroes are actually able to shut down the armor suit that Franklin is currently inside. Now the nanny and orphan maker, they do try their best to get away, but thanks to the invisible woman, the aircraft does not get that far. And matter of fact, it does crash back into the ground. Now we're left to believe the possibility they're both dead. When it comes to the Forgotten One, he says, no, there's no way they're dead. I'm pretty sure they survived somehow because I cannot find a body. Now, to shift our focus back over to Franklin, Reed knows that there's no way to properly open up the armor suit that Franklin is currently trapped inside, but he knows there's possibly a way if they get back to his lab. But the problem is, out of nowhere, Nazareth arrives. And when it comes to Nazareth, he grabs Franklin and takes him through a portal, and that portal closes. And so now our heroes have no choice but to go back into New York City to fight against Nazareth to save Franklin. Now, when it comes to Kang the Conqueror, we're going to shift our focus back on him. Kang knows that he's actually a Spectre. He cannot communicate with the Avengers at all, but he does know that he can use his technology as a way to help form the Avengers. And so there's one android he has left on Earth that could possibly help form the Avengers, and that would be the Growing Man. Now, the Growing Man is an android that just grows in size. How it grows is that every time you hit it with a physical attack, it just grows in size until it's a huge titan standing in front of you. Now, when it comes to Kang, he wants to make sure that the Avengers don't know that the Growing Man was sent by him as a way to help form the Avengers. And so when it comes to Kang, what he wants to do is use the Growing Man to collect different kind of demonic materials as a way to make a disguise to look like a demon. And so for the Avengers, if they do come together, it won't be because, oh, it was Kang the Conqueror. It was more because, oh, these demons brought us together to form a new Avengers team. But now shifting our focus back over to Nazareth, after being able to examine Franklin Richards, he says, hey, you know what? I can use Franklin to open up another portal that would allow more demons from Limbo to come to Earth. That would help advance our chances to win in this battle. So why not go ahead and use Franklin now rather than try to use Franklin to just stop the Goblin Queen? Of course, talking about Madeline Pryor. And so out of nowhere, you have a second portal open up, and now more and more demons are coming through. But while you have our heroes trying to track down Franklin Richards, you then have Steve Rogers see bolts of lightning come straight down from the sky, and he already knows who that is right there. He's like, hey, listen, we gotta head over there because we can pick up another ally. It's Thor. And so now the team is complete. We now have the complete Avengers team coming together to make a new Avengers team. Now, when it comes to Thor, he also brought the Black Knight with him. And when it comes to the Black Knight, I'm not going to sit down and try to discuss what's currently happening to him at this point in Marvel Comics because, again, that's a whole other video down the road. But when it comes to Thor, you have the rest of the heroes catch him up, and he agrees to help them find Franklin Richards. Now, once our heroes agree to work together, you then have the Growing Man appear. Now, for our heroes, they believe that this huge growing titan here is actually a demon, not the growing man. And so they're trying to battle him, but he keeps running away, but also causing a lot of damage to the city. And so for our heroes, they're like, okay, he's running away, but he's also causing a lot of havoc. We gotta bring him down. But what the growing man is trying to do is bring the heroes over to the main base of Nazareth to find Franklin Richards. Because again, if the Avengers are able to complete their goal, then for sure King the Conqueror will survive in the future. He has no choice but to go ahead and help out the heroes. And so you have our heroes at first fight against the growing man until they arrive at the base of the demons. Now, when it comes to our heroes, once they are able to get inside the base, they find Franklin, but they have to fight against an army of demons. And so while you have all the guys on the team fighting against the demons, you have Susan go out of her way to save her son. Now, here's the thing, because this section right here could be very important for later chapters of Inferno that we have not covered yet, especially when it comes to the X-Men, X-Factor, and also New Mutants. Because again, when it came to Franklin, they were trying to use him to open up a second portal, but a bigger one to allow more demons into New York. But while you have Susan being able to take Franklin out of the demon device, those portals closed. Now, there was one portal that was already open a while ago in the earlier chapters of Inferno, but now that portal is closed, all because of Susan being able to grab Franklin and get him the heck out of that device. But once you have our heroes deal with the demons and also save Franklin, well, now they have to fight against the growing man. Now, when it comes to Reed, he is able to make up some device that actually switch the ability around of the growing man. And so instead of being hit and growing in size, every single time he does get hit, he gets smaller and smaller, to the point where you do have our heroes being able to get rid of the growing man. Now, here's the thing, because right after that, you didn't have the heroes go back home or to the home of Reed and Sue, where you have all 5 characters come together and say, you know what? We should go ahead and form a new Avengers team. Now, for Steve Rogers and Thor, they've been on the Avengers before, but for the rest of the characters, this is their first time joining, especially for Reed and Sue. But this begins a supposed new era of Avengers comics with these characters. But with that being said, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.